The Dark Side of the Rainbow, also known as The Dark Side of Oz or The Wizard of Floyd, refers to the pairing of the 1973 Pink Floyd album, The Dark Side of the Moon, with the visual portion of the 1939 film, The Wizard of Oz. This produces moments where the film and the album appear to correspond with each other. The title of the music video mashup-like experience comes from a combination of the album title, the album cover, and the film's song Over the Rainbow. Band members and others involved in the making of the album state that any relationship between the two works of art is merely a coincidence. History. In August 1995, the Fort Wayne, Indiana Journal-Gazette published the first mainstream media article about the synchronicity, citing the Usenet discussion group alt.music.pinkfloyd. Soon afterward, several fans began creating websites in which they touted the experience and tried to comprehensively catalog the corresponding moments. A second wave of awareness began in April 1997, when Boston radio DJ George Taylor Morris discussed Dark Side of the Rainbow on the air, leading to further mainstream media articles and a segment on MTV News. In July 2000, the cable channel Turner Classic Movies aired a version of Oz with the Dark Side album as an alternate soundtrack. Turner Entertainment has owned the rights to the film since 1986. Synchronicity. There are various approaches regarding when to start synchronizing The Dark Side of the Moon audio with the film. Several involve the MGM Lion as the cue. Most suggest the third door, while some prefer the second door first. Others suggest starting the album not immediately after the lion's roar, but after the lion fades to black exactly when the film begins. Viewing recommendations include reducing the film's audio and using captions or subtitles to follow the dialogue and plot. The iconic dispersive prism of the album's cover purportedly reflects the movie's transition from black and white Kansas to Technicolor Oz. Further examples include music changes at dramatic moments, and thematic alignments such as the Scarecrow dance during Brain Damage. This synergy effect has been described as an example of synchronicity, defined by the psychologist Carl Jung as a phenomenon in which coincidental events seem related but are not explained by conventional mechanisms of causality. Detractors argue that the phenomenon is the result of the mind's tendency to think it recognizes patterns amid disorder by discarding data that does not fit. Psychologists refer to this tendency as epiphania, or confirmation bias. In this theory, the Dark Side of the Rainbow enthusiast will focus on matching moments while ignoring the greater number of instances where the film and the album do not correspond. Coincidence versus intent. Pink Floyd band members have repeatedly said that the reputed phenomenon is coincidence. In an interview for the 25th anniversary of the album, guitarist/vocalist David Gilmour denied the album was intentionally written to be synchronized with the film, saying some guy with too much time on his hands had this idea of combining Wizard of Oz with Dark Side of the Moon. On an MTV special about Pink Floyd in 2002, the band dismissed any relationship between the album and the movie, saying there were no means of reproducing the film in the studio at the time they recorded the album. Dark Side of the Moon audio engineer Alan Parsons in 2003 dismissed the supposed effect. "It was an American radio guy who pointed it out to me. It's such a non-starter, a complete load of eyewash. I tried it for the first time about 2 years ago. One of my fiancé's kids had a copy of the video, and I thought I had to see what it was all about. I was very disappointed. The only thing I noticed was that the line balanced on the biggest wave came up when Dorothy was kind of tightrope walking along the fence. One of the things any audio professional will tell you is that the scope for the drift between the video and the record is enormous. It could be anything up to 20 seconds by the time the record's finished. And anyway, if you play any record with the sound turned down on the TV, you will find things that work." Pink Floyd drummer Nick Mason teasingly told MTV in 1997, "It's absolute nonsense. It has nothing to do with The Wizard of Oz. It was all based on the sound of music." Technical Considerations film critic Richard Roper published his assessment of the phenomenon, which he referred to as Dark Side of Oz. Roper concluded that while the band may have had the resources and technical know-how to produce an alternative film soundtrack, undergoing such an endeavor would have been highly impractical. Roper also noted the technical issue of the roughly 43-minute Dark Side of the Moon being short compared to the 101-minute Wizard of Oz. In the book Inside Out, A Personal History of Pink Floyd, Nick Mason noted that the band was becoming proficient at creating movie soundtracks by the time they started the recording of The Dark Side of the Moon, and that they even interrupted their work on the album so they could score yet another film. He explained the technical process that Pink Floyd used to score movies when he wrote about the recording of the 1972 Obscured by Clouds movie soundtrack. After the success of More, we had agreed to do another soundtrack for Barbara Schroeder. His new film was called La Vallée, and we traveled over to France to record the music in the last week of February. We did the recording with the same method we had employed for More, following a rough cut of the film, using stopwatches for specific cues and creating interlinking musical moods that would be cross-faded to suit the final version. The recording time was extremely tight. We only had 2 weeks to record the soundtrack with a short amount of time afterwards to turn it into an album. Variations on the theme of fame of Dark Side of the Rainbow has prompted some to search for synchronicities among other albums by other bands and films by other directors. The lengthy Pink Floyd song Echoes from the 1971 album Metal has been paired with Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, the fourth act in the 1968 film 2001, A Space Odyssey. Again, the correspondences are primarily formal/structural and not grounded in the content of the lyrics. Both the track and the sequence are approximately 23 minutes. Comedian Matt Hersey claims that the Pixar film Wall-E syncs up with Pink Floyd's rock opera The Wall, which he has called Another Brick in the Wall after the album's three-part song Another Brick in the Wall. Another popular Pink Floyd movie sync pairs The Wall with Disney's 1951 animated Alice in Wonderland. In connection with Alice, another Floyd-related album syncs up with that film, Syd Barrett's solo album The Madcap Laughs. Canadian dance music artist Rich Aucoin's second album Ephemeral, released September 2014 in North America, is an adaptation of the themes of the novella The Little Prince and is meant to sync up to the 1979 short claymation film of the same name, along the lines of Dark Side of the Moon and The Wizard of Oz. The French avant-jazz band Ghost Rhythms' third album Madeline is meant to sync up with Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. Something else to consider, also, is a process called backmasking. Backmasking is a recording technique in which a sound or message is recorded backward onto a track that is meant to be played forward. Backmasking is a deliberate process, whereas a message found through phonetic reversal may be unintentional. Backmasking was popularized by the Beatles, who used backward instrumentation on their 1966 album Revolver. Artists have since used backmasking for artistic, comedic and satiric effect, on both analog and digital recordings. The technique has also been used to censor words or phrases for clean releases of explicit songs. Backmasking has been a controversial topic in the United States since the 1970s and 1980s, when allegations from Christian groups of its use for satanic purposes were made against prominent rock musicians, leading to record-burning protests and proposed anti-backmasking legislation by state and federal governments. Legislation was enacted. One result of the furor was the firing of 5 radio DJs who had encouraged listeners to search for backward messages in their record collections. The more serious consequence was legislation by the state governments of Arkansas and California. The 1983 California bill was introduced to prevent backmasking that can manipulate our behavior without our knowledge or consent and turn us into disciples of the Antichrist. Involved in the discussion on the bill was a California State Assembly Consumer Protection and Toxic Materials Committee hearing, during which Stairway to Heaven was played backwards, and William Yodel testified. The successful bill made the distribution of records with undeclared backmasking an invasion of privacy for which the distributor could be sued. The Arkansas law passed unanimously in 1983, referenced albums by the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Electric Light Orchestra, Queen and Styx, and mandated that records with backmasking include a warning sticker. Warning: this record contains backward masking which may be perceptible at a subliminal level when the record is played forward. However, the bill was returned to the state Senate by Governor Bill Clinton and defeated. House Resolution 6363, introduced in 1982 by Representative Bob Dornan, California, proposed mandating a similar label. The bill was referred to the Subcommittee on Commerce, Transportation and Tourism and was never passed. Government action was also called for in the legislatures of Texas and Canada. With the advent of compact discs in the 1980s, but prior to the advent of sound editing technology for personal computers in the 1990s, it became more difficult to listen to recordings backwards, and the controversy died down. In 1995, a video was released of the film with the soundtrack called The Dark Side of Us. At the end of the VHS recording, there is an oscillator shown that indicates that a subliminal signature was being transmitted through the copy. Here is that segment showing the oscillator itself. This occurred This occurred immediately after the sequence of the Jitterbug song, which had been cut from the movie. I have watched the video only twice and it is very dangerous to watch. You can feel something is being told to you through the VHS copy, and them showing this oscillator proves that backmasking can be accomplished through video as well as audio backmasking on vinyl and cassette tapes. It is more than a satirical or comic effect. It is a dangerous way of communicating something to a person's subconscious mind. They could be telling you anything and you would never know what. I felt the impression of something, but I don't know what it was they were trying to tell me. I'm so glad I didn't get what. Who knows what they might have been trying to say. In conclusion to this video, the record for Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon only lasted about 43 minutes. The Wizard of Oz lasted almost 2 hours. The Dark Side of Oz repeated the album 1.5 times before the Jitterbug song was played. I can't post or show anything of the music or movie because of YouTube's strict copyrights. This video today is only to warn those who might have heard about this video of the dangers it poses to the viewers.